Alyson Le Grange, a very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Le Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Donald Trump gets a hero's welcome as he appears at the Republican National Convention with a bandaged ear. The former president officially gets nominated as the party's presidential candidate. European lawmakers overwhelmingly vote to give Conservative Maltese politician Roberta Metsola another term as Speaker of the European Parliament. At least 4 people were killed and several others injured in a shooting incident near a mosque in Oman's capital Muscat, a rare act of violence in the Gulf nation. Rwandan President Paul Kagame secures a 4th term in office after winning over 99% of the vote, where only 2 challengers were allowed to run against him. And the Olympic torch relay travels up the Eiffel Tower on its journey around Paris, which will culminate with the lighting of the cauldron during the opening ceremony of the Paris Games. Hello and welcome. We start with Kenya, where for weeks President William Ruto has blamed foreign entities for stoking unrest in the country. Now he finally revealed the identity of one such foreign entity. In his visit to Nakuru County, President William Ruto accused US-funded Ford Foundation of sponsoring Anarchy and funding anti-government protests that gripped Kenya last month. Ruto said if the non-governmental organization was not interested in democracy in Kenya, they should leave. Earlier today, unrest erupted in the Kenyan capital again, as police fired tear gas at dozens of demonstrators in Nairobi. Scattered rallies across the country called for President Ruto to step down. Heavy police deployment was seen in Nairobi's business district, which was the epicenter of a previous protest.
We've been seeing frequent abroad trips, nothing in this country, until we started demonstrating in the streets. That's nowadays we're having president in this country. We're having our president in this country. Ruto is very much incompetent. He has no leadership skills. He just wanted the title to be the president of this country. After sending, we know like what the guy is a puppet to IMF. That is it. Whatever he's doing for IMF. He's not leading this country at all. He's not leading this country.
This is our land. We are dying here. We get justice or we die here. And the irreversible minimum is either the president abide by what the people are telling him. We gave him that power. It is time for him to abide by what we are telling him. Or we demand IMF to come and carry their own puppet.
The East African nation has plunged into chaos since protests, which started as peaceful rallies, turned into violent and deadly clashes against the government's proposed tax hikes. and spiraled into a wider campaign against President William Ruto. The protesters are demanding William Ruto's resignation. Dozens of people have been killed since the protests began. The 25th of June saw the protests peak with angry crowds storming the parliament and the police firing live bullets on protesters. Pushing back against the protests, Ruto said that he was ready to unite the country. In response, the Ford Foundation has denied sponsoring anarchy, violence and chaos in Kenya, as claimed by President William Ruto. In a statement, it said it did not fund or sponsor recent protests against the finance bill and that it has a strictly non-partisan policy for all its grant-making. The Ford Foundation, established in 1936 by Edsel Ford, the son of Ford Motor Company founder Henry Ford, aims to advance social justice and to promote democratic values. It has grown to become one of the world's top philanthropic organizations with operations in 11 regions across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and North America. It's also the 11th wealthiest foundation globally, behind other notable names like Novo Nordisk Foundation and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The Ford Foundation has had operations in Kenya for decades. Its Nairobi office opened in 1963. It has offered grants to various Kenyan rights groups and civic organizations. Ruto's latest claims could impact Kenya's relations with its longtime ally, the United States. In May this year, Ruto flew to Washington, D.C., where he was hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden, marking 60 years of U.S.-Kenya relations. They share strong military and defense cooperation. The two leaders even announced plans on debt relief at a time when Kenya has a mounting pile of national debt. Meanwhile, by maintaining ties with Kenya, which is an East African powerhouse, the U.S. aims to counter China's growing influence across the continent. Now, in what ways could Ruto's charge against a U.S.-based organization affect the ties between the two allies remains to be seen. Now, for more, we have with us Stella Agara, a governance and security analyst and a tax justice activist. She joins us live from Nairobi. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what evidence does President Ruto provide to support his claim that the Ford Foundation is sponsoring protests in Kenya?
Unfortunately, until now, he has not provided any concrete evidence that could convince the rest of the citizens of Kenya that Ford Foundation is funding these protests. Even worse is the fact that amongst Kenyans, we are counting a list of different actors who have been accused for this protest. In the beginning, some of his agents and the members of his party were claiming that these protests were funded by the opposition. They were funded by the former president, that they were funded by the former prime minister, who is also the leader of the opposition. Next, they went on to blame other politicians within the government. They named a few names. When it could not stick, they proceeded to blame the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. They have also blamed Kim Jong-un. It went on even all the way to blaming the Illuminati. Now, yesterday, he came up with the Ford Foundation blame, and anyone listening to some of these claims would honestly believe that this is a drowning man clutching at a straw. He has looked everywhere to find someone to blame and has not found, and is constantly trying one or the other to see which one would stick. Number two, and most importantly, is the fact that in mentioning Ford Foundation, he actually mentioned Ford Foundation in the middle of the public. I don't know if any effort had been made to consult with different actors, even speak to Ford Foundation and establish what their role has been in this conversation. I will tell you that Ford Foundation was not responsible for writing the finance bill that his party presented, his government presented in Parliament. Ford Foundation has not been responsible for the decisions that his government makes as far as his policies are concerned. Ford Foundation has not been responsible for forcing some of these programs on Kenyans, even when Kenyans told him that they do not like those programs. Ford Foundation did not order the police to come and attack people on the streets. He is the one who ordered them to come and attack people on the streets. Ford Foundation does not have control over all the Kenyans who are on social media. And so it's a bit complicated for him to start saying now that he's going to be blaming it on Ford Foundation. This is a drowning man clutching at a straw.
Right. And Stella, what is the situation like at the moment? We saw the peaceful protests turn into violent scenes, followed by Ruto giving in to the protesters' demands. Where does Kenya stand now?
He did give in to some of the protesters' demands. He has appeared on an X space for a conversation with the youth and basically to get to understand what they wanted. He has fired his entire cabinet, which was something that the protesters had asked for. Definitely the finance bill was withdrawn. That was one of the biggest demands, and that was the only demand. And had he reacted early enough, that would be the only issue he would be dealing with now, and probably other conversations on governance. However, throughout this process, he has not fully acknowledged the deaths that have been caused as a result of the pushback on the protests. Most importantly, he took very long to even send condolences and apologize and commiserate with those who had lost their people. But then even after he did that, no policeman has been held accountable until now for some of the excesses in their actions. So this is really upsetting most Kenyans. And over the weekend, there were dead bodies that were found, and when they were first found, it was claimed that they were from the protests. Of course, they have found another way to explain them by virtue of explaining that it's a serial killer who took their lives. But that is one of the issues that is keeping people on the streets. The second one has to do with the fact that he's still very apologetic about some of the things that he has withdrawn, almost to say that he's only doing this to appease Kenyans for a short time, and then he's going to go back to his usual ways, which unfortunately Kenyans have said they will not tolerate this much, and they have tolerated this for too long, and nothing is getting better along the way. The last thing is to say that his arrogance and the fact that he continues to find someone to blame means that he has not realized that Kenyans themselves are behind this protest and they support it 100%, and they want to see changes that he seems to be blaming on everyone else, except the fact that his government has been competent.
Now, and Stella, what impact might this controversy have on Kenya's political landscape?
I think one of the things that we must observe right now is that maybe we may be seeing these scenes of protests coming up for a very long time. The president is suffering from an extreme legitimacy deficit. It is one that he came into office with, but he seemed not to recognize it. The gap of his legitimacy has grown even bigger now, but he seems not to be convinced that he's actually grown unpopular amongst the people. And so it's going to put us in a situation of back and forth fights between the government and the protesters for a very long time to come. The second one has to do with the fact that the political opportunists in this country are raring for a fight. And you may have noticed that today we had different kinds of people appearing in the protests who we haven't seen in the last couple of days. People wielding the same type of baton, possibly even designed by the same artisan, which speaks of organized conflict. It speaks of organized gangs that could actually morph and have a life of their own after this process. Kenya has been a country with a lot of order. Kenya has been a country with the rule of law. Kenya has been a country that has consistently functioned within the formal economy and the formal space. The rise of such gangs, the rise of such groups to defend different interests is going to really, really affect how our society gels together, how our politics is run, and of course, how security in our country is going to be run. The other thing is that it continues to drive the on the coffin of the government's legitimacy, and I don't know how the government is going to get itself out of this situation.
Right. Stella, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and for your valued insights on all the latest coming out of Kenya.
Thank you for having me.
Now, shifting focus to Nigeria. Nigerians can now fly to the United Arab Emirates after 2 years of a ban. The Arab nation has lifted its visa restrictions on Nigerians. The announcement ends a 21-month standoff between the UAE and Nigeria. As per the Nigerian Information Minister, the agreement comes after both sides held talks to resolve the months of diplomatic row. The UAE had imposed a visa ban on Nigerian passport holders since October of 2022. This after the UAE's Emirates airline suspended flights between the countries due to an inability to repatriate funds from Nigeria. Nigeria's central bank has since cleared a backlog of around $137 million in foreign exchange owed to international airlines. While announcing the ban, the UAE also cited improper conduct and attempts by citizens of Nigeria to circumvent visa rules that led to the restriction. Nigeria and the UAE had signed a bilateral air services agreement in 2017. However, they have had certain issues unresolved surrounding the agreement. The visa ban affected both nations. The UAE is a top destination for Nigerian migrants and tourists. Many Nigerian real estate developers have also invested in the UAE. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Nigerians ranked among Dubai's largest foreign real estate investors. To resolve the issues, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu traveled to the UAE and met with the UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in 2023. After the meeting, it was widely reported that the UAE had lifted the visa ban. However, the Arab nation later denied these reports. Now, the latest talks came after the Emirates airline said in May that it would resume flight schedules to Nigeria in October. The resumption of schedule also includes cargo flights. So Nigeria and the UAE are finally looking for a reset, which could be significant for the economic and people-to-people ties between the two nations. For our next story, let's shift focus to Central Africa, a volatile region and a hotbed for armed conflicts and instability. A region in Central Africa is witnessing a worsening kidnapping crisis. So much so, this area is called a triangle of death. This is the region where borders of three nations, Chad, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic meet. It encompasses areas like Mayokebi Ust and Logan Oriental in Chad, to Cameroon's north region, and Limpende in the Central African Republic. The area has witnessed a surge in kidnappings. Though there is no official number, some estimates suggest the number has been over 1,500 in the past 2 decades. However, the figure is seen as widely underestimated, as many families do not contact law enforcement agencies out of fear of retaliation or of being asked for money by the authorities themselves. Little is known about the kidnappers as well, but victims have reportedly described them as speaking Arabic and the local Fulani languages. It is believed that terror groups like Boko Haram could have a hand. Nigeria in the west has seen multiple kidnappings carried out by the group in the past few years. Now, West and Central Africa share porous borders, and experts say it is possible that it has allowed the group to move along to the area to find possible victims as well as criminal allies to finance their ventures. As per experts, the local Fulani herders could also be involved, who are both victims and perpetrators. But what is known is that these kidnappings are not taking place due to some ethnic or religious motive, but have instead turned into a profession where kidnappers ask for huge ransom money. As per official data, in 2022, over $71,000 was paid in ransom in this area. The number was over $87,000 last year. However, as per an international NGO, around $150,000 was paid in ransom in just 6 months last year. Kidnappers target everyone from traders to civil servants and to aid workers. Some of the victims have also reportedly been murdered despite ransom being paid. Now, the perpetrators have thrived because of weak state governance, but also because of the geography. Forests have served as criminal hideouts in the region. The kidnappings have had an adverse impact on the movement of goods, cattle, and humans across the Cameroon-Chad Central African Republic corridor. Farmers are also scared to work, leading to rotting harvests and depleting food volumes. Authorities have struggled to take the necessary action to dismantle the criminal networks, and locals have resorted to looking out for their own safety. They are now banding into vigilante groups and taking up weapons like bows, arrows, and spears to fight the enemy. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid reports of coups and crises that dominate the headlines from the continent, we get you positive stories that often get overlooked. Our story today is from Tunisia's seaside town of Hammamet. The town has watched its popular beach shrink for over a decade as rising sea levels continue to erode its coastline. And now authorities have launched a beach nourishment project to spread 750 truckloads of fine sand throughout the disappearing beach. Our final report gets you more details.
The effects of climate change are not limited to heat waves, floods and storms. They also threaten the existence of humans in ways that are often ignored till the time they can't be anymore. In the North African country of Tunisia, where 2/3 of the population lives along the coast, beaches have been disappearing due to rising sea levels and coastal erosion. The term coastal erosion refers to the loss of land along the shoreline because of several factors, including wind-driven water and tides. This land loss can also cause a shift in the coastline shape permanently. Tunisia's renowned seaside town of Hammamet has faced the very same problem. The town has watched its beaches shrink for over a decade, with rising sea levels eroding its shoreline. And to combat this growing challenge, Tunisia's Coastal Protection and Development Agency has now launched a beach nourishment operation in Hammamet. Authorities are busy spreading 750 truckloads of sand deposited throughout June this year. They say spreading the fine sand would help protect the beach. However, the government's beach nourishment program is drawing criticism from the locals. They say the program sounds good on paper, but a concrete action plan is needed to protect the beaches.
This beach is the postcard of the city of Hammamet, etched in our memories since childhood. Hammamet is this beach, this bay, and this beautiful landscape. I'm not against this solution as long as there is transparency, such as if the relevant ministry informed us it is a temporary solution for this summer.
Residents say without complementary solutions, the beaches can't be protected completely, as the sea could wash the sand away just like before.
When they tell us that this operation aims to protect the beach, it's not true because unfortunately, it won't 100% protect the beach if it's not accompanied by other techniques.
It's a temporary solution, I would say. The 750 trucks, I believe, are equivalent to 15,000 cubic meters of sand that is being placed on the beach. We don't know how the sea would react. It could wash it away. But it could be a temporary solution.
Not just coastal erosion, but reports say plastic waste, water pollution and illegal urban expansion are also contributing in the loss of land in low-lying areas. According to Hammamet's Environmental Association, 20 meters of the beach have disappeared in the last 2 years. And even with the government's beach nourishment project, people are uncertain if the remaining land could be saved from erosion. Tunisia's Mediterranean coastline stretches for around 1,200 kilometers, and 80% of the country's economy relies on the shoreline. So, with climate change taking its toll, Tunisia's government has to take permanent action now to save its beaches before it's too late.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.